Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Kevin Gallagher, and as always, a very special guest, founder of Third Coast Grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and proud Texas son, Ryan McGuire. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us today.
You look like a Texan too, man.
Hell of a fucking intro.
You just got that Texas look, man. You got that fucking the little beard, the big
he's basically saying that in coronavirus that I look like a cow now. That's what he's saying.
That's the power of journalism, man. I'm leading you in to say it yourself, so I don't have to be a bad guy.
What's up, guys?
We just wanted to have Ryan by since Ryan and I actually have a fairly unique relationship in that I was lucky enough to do one of the first articles for like the first Third Coast Grappling event.
You did the first article ever written about Third Coast Grappling.
Yep. First ever. And I'm like, as I was writing it, I only could think of, I'm going to milk this like super hard later on in life. But appearing somewhat out of nowhere, Third Coast Grappling went from this like really like obscure show in Texas to being one of like the premier places for high level jiu-jitsu. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the organization?
Man, honestly, it was one of those moments where I think a lot of promoters have had in the past where you go to an event and you're looking around, you're seeing people falling asleep, you're just seeing different stuff that you're like, man, I can do this, but most people think I can do this and I can do it better. Some of them can, they try, they do it, and then they fall. But I was like, you know what, I can do this. It's not that I just don't have like a set of skills. Like I used to run music production. I used to do all kinds of different stuff on that side. And so it was a natural marriage to try to bring in, my knowledge from the music side of things into the grappling kind of thing and try and create basically, Seth had coined the term, the biggest party in grappling. We want to be the biggest concert in grappling. We want to be the biggest we just want it to be like a big party. We don't allow kids in our events. And it just kind of started rolling from, going to an event, seeing how it was, and then I sent out a 20-person text message to people and was like, "Hey, meet me up at Twin Peaks. I've got some ideas. I've got a venue a friend of mine has let me use. I got this and that. Let's go from there." And 4 people showed up, and within I think 4 or 5 months, we threw our first event, which had Keenan Cornelius and Tex Johnson, headline, and then from there, it was like, whoa, because we sold the venue out the most it's ever been sold out. It's been open 20 years. Papa Roach has played there, big names. We sold it out so bad that it was that people were just like, holy shit. Like, it was terrible for people that bought tickets. They were jammed in there. They couldn't see. But from like a promotional aspect, it's like we oversold. We knew we had something. So from there, it was kind of like, okay, let's move up to another venue. But in there, we were able to start bringing in some investors, and we brought in some other people that believed in our vision. And then, I had the idea to kind of go like a full all in. I like to play poker. I'm a big poker player. So it was like, let's do like a big all in moment marketing push. Let's get the biggest names in the games. Let's throw them on our card. Let's try our rule set out. Let's put our nuts out on the table. Let's throw a crazy show and see how it goes. And it lasted till 2 a.m. It was way too long. And it had its share of issues, but it also had its share of big successes as well, as we had so many big names on one card, and we were able to pull it off, and everybody got paid. And that was our second big event. So we went from a smaller 600 to 800 capacity venue to all of a sudden to where we're at now. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I remember when those first events were coming out, and one of the biggest things that I have always considered to be essential in bridging that gap between jiu-jitsu as something that jiu-jitsu people dig to jiu-jitsu as something that the average Joe will also get into, because that's important, because you're only going to go so far if you're marketing solely to jiu-jitsu practitioners. That's
for sure.
That's your base. It's always to people, and I feel like one of the reasons why you've been this successful, and maybe you can correct me on this, is because you're in that. You're in Houston, right? Houston or Austin, in that area.
Right, we're in Houston. Yeah.
Anyway, that particular area is kind of an under the cover hotbed for really great jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of great jiu-jitsu programs down there.
Yeah, there is. And with Houston, what made it so special was that, I was able to kind of take fill it up with a lot of good local athletes on our undercard. And that was kind of the appeal to the community. Look, we're going to bring these big guys in. They're going to do these seminars. You're going to get to compete alongside of them. We saw what Flow Grappling did with Marvin Castell. All it takes is one move. So we're going to bring these basically unknown. These guys aren't out there doing these sub-only circuits and doing these other super fight events, around the country and doing all that, building their name up. These are guys that are right down the road from us, that I know are scrappy and I want to have an opportunity to get out there. So maybe they
hold on a second, Ryan. I don't mean to cut you. You guys want to pause for a second? We can edit this out. You want to find out what that fucking alarm is? So it doesn't make it crazy. No one's gonna listen. No one's gonna pay attention. All they're gonna hear is that.
Hold on one
alarm.
second.
Yeah.
No, it's just it's all.
We're good.
That alarm was actually my wife who was out walking the dog. So
no big deal, dude. It's just if I know that I can't pay attention to anything else but the alarm, I couldn't
either. I was like,
I'll put like a thing on the screen just saying apologies for the alarm.
That'd be better.
It's all good. Yeah, but speaking on that a little bit, I remember when I was first interviewing you, a big thing that you were talking about as the impetus was that you wanted high level grappling to come to Texas. That there was nothing there. It was sort of a drought area, and that you saw a need. Since the first event, do you think that need has been filled or is being filled sufficiently?
I think we were just getting to the level I think we needed to get the show to. I mean, Third Coast Grappling 4 sold out probably in I think less than a month, and that's like over 70 tables and 650 general admission tickets sold out less than a month. And we wanted to get it to the point to where the venue we were at, Warehouse Live, we could basically say on sale and our event sells out within where we're kind of at now, within the first couple of weeks or a month. And so the Houston community has been super, super supportive. And the thing there's just so many, it's such a wide, it's such a big city. So there's schools all over the city. So, I mean, you're not really, you can have another promotion in town, which we do, who does kind of more of the kind of hobbyist type. It's kind of a Seth type of model, but instead of they don't have the big names like Seth does on their card, but they do something for the local guys. Kind of every Submission Hunter Pro. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Yeah, I know. I think I've competed on. I was supposed to compete on one of their shows when they came to Orlando, but I had to pull out because I got hurt.
Yeah, but those guys. That's the only other promotion. There's plenty of room in town for us, so we're all. We're just trying to build up the Houston town because I think there's good jiu-jitsu everywhere. It's not just California. It's not just New York anymore. You got great jiu-jitsu in Florida. You got great jiu-jitsu in Texas. And, with Third Coast Grappling, we wanted to showcase, that. I'm trying my best to bring the athletes from Texas, from Louisiana, from Florida, to come in and for us to showcase that it's not just the West or the East Coast anymore. That
I'm still waiting for my email, but it's no big deal, right? No,
I was just about to say,
with you, buddy.
Ryan, I was just about to say, Ryan, Gordon Ryan. Yeah, I think a few people have heard of him. He's kind of a big name, but he's no Kevin Gallagher. Come on.
Don't start that. I don't need those rumors.
With our demographic, we're seeing is. A lot of people don't know who these big guys are. They'll come out to support their friends that are on the undercard, and they'll come out to just have a good time. And the way we do it is I get a beer sponsor to give free beer away to the VIP table owners. So they're getting drunk for free. They're getting rowdy. We don't allow kids in our events. It's smoky. It's loud. It's like a pro wrestling event. You guys have watched it, but the real experience is being at one. There's nothing like it. And so I think the more shows we're able to put on, and hopefully after all this passes, the more people will continue to have their eyes open that our brand of grappling is exciting, and that we did, in my opinion, turn jiu-jitsu and grappling into a potential spectator sport if it keeps going the path it's going.
That's the point I was trying to make earlier when I kind of got off topic and talked about some other things, but the idea that I feel like you have and just in general, the more successful events that I've been to and that I've seen, they understand that it's that the jiu-jitsu, it's a difficult road to kind of transverse because you don't want to turn into a complete gimmick because the jiu-jitsu is still a real combative sport. You want to make that be the highlight. But you also have to make it interesting enough to attract people that aren't necessarily jiu-jitsu fans. And then when they get in the room, they start to realize, wow, this is pretty exciting. This is pretty fun to watch. These are actually some pretty highly athletic, highly trained, highly talented people putting down the line. But you got to do that by having bands. You got to do that by having DJs. You got to do that by having free beer and getting the folks loud and rowdy.
And one thing my friend told me, he goes, Ryan, until your shows, I was afraid to bring my family or girlfriend to these events because I brought them to one before, and they told me that they basically called me a. Oh, wow. So if you got to bleep that out or whatever, I didn't know if that was appropriate, but no, they basically were like, dude, like, what are you doing? You're in your pajamas, you're over here throwing around, like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe you made me wait 4 hours. And now he's like, dude, I'm not scared to bring my family to your events. They come out, they get a table, they have fun, So that was always my intention from the beginning. Is a lot of guys are like, oh, I want to make a bunch of money, I want to do this. We're gonna do competitive grappling. Metamoris kind of set the standard with the big stage in the middle, and everybody's they're like, oh wow, that's cool, like 360 views and all that. But ours is like, we're looking past just, most concert venues are set up for the best spectator experience possible. They throw concerts for a living. So if we're basically trying to throw concerts with grappling athletes, the music venues already have the built-in production. They have everything they need. We bring in, I guarantee you, half the amount of production cost for our events that other events are having to do. We do all of our own streaming, all of our own stuff, it's been costly our first year in the game, and we've lost our ass in some instances, and but at the end of the day, we're good now, and we're ready to keep moving forward.
Let's talk a little bit about your own streaming, because that's something that's interesting. Because like I in my opinion, you guys were the first organization to really try to pull away from the stranglehold that Flow Grappling has on everything. And that's neither wrong nor right. And I'm not trying to knock Flow Grappling. I'm just saying that, like, I haven't renewed my membership because I'm not paying another $144, right, particularly right now, to watch matches. How do you feel like you've been able to conquer that demon? And do you have any advice for other shows that might be able to work with, might be working with that?
Well, we're still with Flow Grappling. But no, I'll give you some insight. I mean, we were signed with them. We went through some pretty intense litigation through the summer over what we believe we weren't. I mean, I can't go too many details about it. There's a lot of confidentiality stuff that went on, but I was in there with them, just me and my attorney, facing down their $1 million lawyers, and Neil wheeling and dealing. I went back and forth to Austin multiple times. It was an experience, but at the end of the day, we got what we wanted. They got what they wanted, and we're pretty happy for the most part on the other side of the relationship. I mean, they have some really good people over there that we get along with. There's some people over there we don't get along with, but that's in life anyway.
The one thing I have issue with Flow Grappling, this is the one major issue that I have with is the fact that they now have ownership of all content. And I say that in regards to, me as myself that's trying to market myself in one way or another to sell DVDs or to get private lessons or whatever the hell I have to do to market myself, because you got to market yourself. That's the name of the game. It's just you as a promoter know that when someone says, hey, I want to be on your show, probably the first or third thing you're going to do is go to their Instagram page, find out how many likes they have, how many followers they have, how many people are interested in them, because young fighters don't necessarily get that.
No, not at all.
You want to come in and say, hey, I want to get paid this X, Y, and Z. And you as a promoter, like, okay, well, cool. Tell me what you're going to do to make sure that I recoup that investment in you in one way or another. The main way you do that is through your multimedia, your Facebook, your Instagram, and all the other shit.
Well, like with like Flow Grappling, like you were saying about the content, that's why us as an organization, I took the initiative and I was like, guys, we got to develop our own content. We got to do our own podcasts. We got to do our own highlight shows. We got to do our own countdown shows. We got to do all that stuff. So I, commissioned a team of people. You guys probably know him. He does the Alexander Marketing. He does the what's it called? The Rear Naked Radio, I think so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, we just had Drew on. A previous episode. So, Drew Weatherhead.
Drew is awesome.
Not Drew Weatherhead. Those guys are awesome, but no,
that's Rear Naked Radio.
Yeah, this is God damn it! Why can't I remember the?
Is it something black belts, 3 black belts, or something like that?
No, I was just on the damn podcast. I feel like an asshole for not doing this.
I know. Don't worry about it.
Because they're the greatest. They were the greatest. They were awesome. was one of the best ones I've been on. Let me see.
We're talking about our podcast now.
Yeah, like Ryan,
Jiu-Jitsu Radio. Sorry, Jiu-Jitsu Radio.
Jiu-Jitsu Radio. Okay, shout out to Jiu-Jitsu Radio. Sorry
guys.
Mad love to everybody out there. We're trying to.
But no, like I found the importance early on when we were getting kind of geared up to get out of our first flow contract and go into our own subscription service. We were starting to get our own content developed, our own people. Everything that you see that's out there is from us. I mean, Flow Grappling, they'll do their build up usually about 2 weeks before the event because their marketing goals and our marketing goals are completely different. Mine's to sell tickets, sell my event out, and create general awareness from a certain time to a certain time. Whereas their goals are to get viewers to watch the show, which as an ADD nation, they think anything longer than 2 weeks away, it's kind of going to be overkill unless it's like an ADCC or Worlds or something like that. So they pace their marketing. It's just 2 different marketing goals. So early on, I was like, man, what the fuck? Why aren't you guys giving us any love? Like I'm having to do all this other different stuff, and you guys, and then they explained why they do it. It makes a lot of sense. So
that's an interesting business model in life in general. The more you diversify yourself, you're not necessarily dealing with an event, but you're getting your name out there. The more podcasts you have, the more interviews you do, the more freaking magazine articles you've written about you. It's all about building the buzz around
the right magazine articles written about you, man. My God.
All exposure is good exposure.
All press is good press.
All press is good press.
It is what it is. But that was definitely a first time experience for me because my experience with Jiu-Jitsu media for the most part has been 1,000,000% positive. Like with Jiu-Jitsu Times, with Kevin from the beginning, and then me and Avery have a good friendship, and then Kit, I know him very well. My professor Dracolino, Homelos, his professors. Kit's a black belt under Homelos, so we have like the whole lineage. So I have a lot of love for you guys, and I've always tried to do it. But not everybody is like you guys. There's a lot of guys that are just. They're not journalists. And
honestly, I've heard that the Jiu-Jitsu Radio guys are kind of lame. So no. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Knock on them in one show. We should
I'm just trying to get enemies. But you were actually just saying, just to go off what you were saying about exposure to the Jiu-Jitsu media. Your event took off really fast, and the Jiu-Jitsu media responded to that very positively. I think after. Meta Morris and even more recent duds, we like seeing something succeed well and bring a sort of legitimacy to the sport. What about the athletes? How did they like dealing with talent, dealing with competitors? Was there a lot of initial interest and has that kept building as you've kept doing events?
Of course it keeps building event to event, but in the beginning, like we had to overpay. Like I didn't know what these guys cost, like I didn't know that, because the markets are so inflated. You got Russian warlords paying guys $20,000, and then you got these guys from Abu Dhabi that are paying $50,000, and then you got little podunk Billy down the street paying them $3,000. So like there's like no market. So you got to find, I guess, different things that motivate them. Like, hey, you know what? I'll set up a seminar for you here while you're in town in Houston. You've never done one before, so we'll offset the cost of your purse that way. Or some of these guys are just stuck on it, like it's $10,000 or bust, or it's this or bust. And Brazilians are gangsters when they're trying to negotiate. Like they're so gangster about their negotiations that even after you sign the contract, they want to keep negotiating.
Right.
So they're great people. It's not I'm not like hating on them or anything. I'm just saying like those guys are like the ultimate businessmen. Like they're always hustling. They're always trying to get their money. And it's kind of different than the American athlete, where the American athlete is almost afraid to ask to be paid to do a service. Like it's just a weird kind of dynamic to deal with, I've noticed.
I think a big reason that comes from that is because when you talk about these events in Dubai and in the UK and some of the other countries that are put on by these rich investors, is the fact that they don't care about making money. They're just doing it they're doing it for the pure love of jiu-jitsu. Like, you look at the ADCC. I talked to someone on the inside of the ADCC. I won't mention his name because he asked me not to mention his name, but an anonymous source. But, he says, yearly the ADCC, they lose millions and millions of dollars, but the Sheik doesn't care because he loves jiu-jitsu. And then traditionally they pay whatever they pay, and they bring him over to the country and they pay him these giant purses to come over and compete, in front of all their friends and family because they want to do that because they love jiu-jitsu. But the reality of it is as an entrepreneur, someone that's trying to build a business, yeah, you love jiu-jitsu, but you're also trying to, I'm sure making a buck isn't out of the equation either. So yeah, the competitors and the athletes need to kind of try to think along those lines. Some money is better than no money.
And I think there's like this misconception that grappling promoters are out there to fuck the fighters and to just try and make all this money, and they're going home with this big barrel of money. And I'll be honest with you, man, like I lost $120,000 our first year. Like after it was all said and done and we did our K2 or taxes as a business, we lost $120,000 last year. And personally, I lost a substantial amount of money, but we started winning our last 3 events. So we're doing this stuff. You can't come in here and not have passion for it. You can't come in here and not have balls for it and then try and make a difference. It's such a young industry, and it's so like, it's like the Wild West out there that you can you can just get hot and boom, next thing you know, you're the next big thing. You've blown the sport up, just like the UFC did with the Ultimate Fighter. Like that came out of nowhere. It just takes, like Shugyo, like that event Shugyo. Have you seen those guys, the way that they do it? It's like they're recorded. No, I don't know, but it's the way they're doing it. They have like a cool little reality show that they're kind of filming where they do.
Oh, I did see a little bit about that.
It's like no time limit, but they pre-record it and they edit it down. And like Nathan Orchard versus Jordan Holly was the final for it. But it was it was really good. But no, I think man, I just think that you have to. It's going to take a lot of different things in order to get it out in the mainstream, but it's going to start with a shift with mindsets and what people's expectations are. And this is a perfect time coming out of the coronavirus stuff to kind of reset the market, because we're not going to be able to pull in probably the amount of people that we're used to pulling in at the live gate. We're not going to, I mean, it's just going to be a completely different world. I mean, I'd be surprised if I get a show off before the end of the year. I have one set up for June 13th, but
we'll get in. We can get into that for hours and hours.
Yeah,
and hours.
well, actually, just because we were in contact, Ryan, you and I were in contact right as the severity of the outbreak was kind of being known. Keenan had just closed his gym, I think, right around the time we were talking when you were supposed to come on originally, and it was sort of becoming real. It was becoming the monster that it is today. Can you talk about how that unfolded on your end, seeing this outbreak spread from your point of view?
Well, my team will tell you I was the most skeptical. Like, no, this is bullshit. We're just going to go on, blah, 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 being the bullheaded guy. I don't want to hear it. And I have people on my team that actually do this for a living. Like one of them is an actual works for the health and public safety and all that. And she's a PhD student in to be an epidemiologist. So we had her, we had city and county officials, and I was trying to take information in from everywhere. I was taking guidance from, what other events were doing around the country, the UAE, JJF. I was looking at, concert festivals. South by Southwest was something I used to play every year, or I used to be a part of every year as a musician or as a show producer. And that was canceled, never been canceled before. And then they come to the Houston Rodeo cancels. And it's just like all these iconic events. And these people, I guarantee you, are listening to people much smarter than me. And I'm guarantee you they paid way more money than I did to get their threat assessment on what was actually going down and the actual PR and overall economic impacts it has if they didn't shut their event down.
Yeah, I mean, Houston and Texas in that area was traditionally the first area to really buckle down on these closures, I think, if I remember correctly, which is I remember you were the first event, because we were gonna interview you on the day that everything broke down, and we had to break away to go deal with all that stuff.
And there's been a lot of stuff that was said behind the scenes. A lot of people that were mad, they were angry. I mean, the Substar thing, it just happened. People were like, man, they got stiff there. And then next thing you know, we're sitting here talking about canceling an event or just keeping it to Texas only. And people are already skeptical. All I wanted to do was limit people flying into my damn state from California, New York, overseas. And then people started kind of interpreting it as, oh, well, you're just trying to screw the guys over and save money and do this. Like, we were going to make money with the original card. When we scaled it down to a Texas only card, we were going to lose our fucking asses just to put a show on. So I think there's a very big disconnect between people that don't do this for a living or that don't know the industry to people that actually do this for a living. This isn't like my second or third show. I've done 7 shows. I've done a kids event. Like I have a diverse roster of very successful shows and mostly sold out shows under my vest. And we're not doing it with rich investors, and we're not doing it with, we did it with ingenuity and just for the love of jiu-jitsu, man. It was just 3 guys and a gal that sat down and said, let's see what we can do.
I think it's an interesting perspective coming from someone that's an actual business owner to chime in on that as well too, because as a business owner, just like you said before, it's like, well, I mean, like we're going full. I mean, until the government officials tell me that I have to shut down, we're doing this thing. Like I get everything that's involved, but we've got money on the line. People are expecting to get paid, and not just myself, the athletes that are coming in to compete. They've trained. Like, so until someone tells me to shut down, I'm going to keep going full bore ahead. Not to hear you change that tune, or maybe not change that tune, but at least come to the realization that, hey, if there are other institutions just like the NBA, like Major League Baseball, that are paying way, way, way more money for the information, and they're shutting down and they're losing tons and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars because of it, maybe I should pay attention to that.
And also, look, it's kind of like the Burger King effect too. Why do you think there's usually a Burger King right next to McDonald's, right? Because McDonald's already did all the research, the neighborhood research, all the different stuff, the economics. And Burger King says, fuck that. I'm not going to pay for all that. I'm just going to come sit right next to it. And if maybe people will choose Burger King one day, maybe some people will choose McDonald's. Yeah. So it's like we're using – I have friends that work that are police officers that worked on the coronavirus task force in Houston, and all of them are telling us, limit people traveling in from out of state. If you want to try and make your event work, this is how you're going to do it. We tried to make it work. We kept getting cut down from like 250 people, literally like an hour or two. I think we were on the way to the weigh-ins for the Texas edition card on a conference call when there was some guidance that came down from the Texas State Athletic Commission telling the MMA events, you're off this weekend, you can't do it. And that was the final straw for me. I was like, we're not governed under those guys, but I'm not going to go against all this stuff out there just to put on an event and just in spite, basically. I mean, Fight to Win it canceled. All these other events had canceled finally. How can I come out and be like, hey, rah, coronavirus is so bad, I got to cancel my event and get out of it, and then be the one that still tries to put the show on at the end of the day when it's the most unsafe. It just didn't make sense. And, we made that call literally like on the way to the weigh-ins. We're on the phone. I'm like, hey, guys, we got to pull the plug. So, I mean, how would it have looked if we let it go on? We let the athletes weigh in. They turn their ticket money in. They do all their stuff. And they're like, oh, sorry, guys. Like, it was a tough decision. There were so many moving parts going on, and it was changing daily. And rather than risk having all those high-level athletes, the Gordon Ryans and all them in Houston for fight week, like we called it the Friday before. And you know what? Honestly, Mo Jocelyn from ADCC, I was talking to him early on before he got mad at me. And he was even like, well, why don't you make your decision now? It'll be better than waiting till Monday. It gives people more time to move things around, which what he meant was move the events to Fight to Win, which is something as soon as I made the call, my first messages were to Seth, like saying, hey, we got these matches. If you can take any of them off our shoulder, blah, 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 blah. I'd appreciate it. And in typical Seth fashion, he's like, fuck that. I don't want those matches. I'd rather have orange belts. And, he's doing his whole thing. He's like, I don't want, they're not my matches. He's like, and it was cool. I respected it. But then the matches still end up out there because it was the only event to go to. Mo and Seth are cool. They threw ADCC together. Yes. And Mo can be pretty convincing. So I'm sure he was like, hey, Seth, let's make these matches happen. And then their event got canceled. And then we canceled ours. Yeah. And here the fuck we are. People are still salty on both sides a little bit, but whatever. Time heals all wounds. We weren't trying to fuck anybody over. We were just trying to throw an event. It got very complicated. And yeah, that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Real quick, this is definitely something that I want to go further on, just because it was definitely a big thing. There was a lot of uproar. We got a lot of DMs about it, but you brought up something earlier, and I want to break into that a little bit. Sure. Just to break up the sort of severity of the topic. I don't want to talk about the coronavirus. All I do is stay like no, for real. And I need to know this. Is there any universe, like what would ever make you choose a Whopper over a Big Mac? Just to get back to Burger King, McDonald's. Because I'm really thinking about it, and I'm thinking, what have been the times in my life where I've gone to Burger King? Really sad, just completely lost, destitute. Like I've never felt worse in my entire life, and I've given up essentially. And then that burger sort of like it did for Robert Downey Jr. that one time when he had a Burger King burger and said it was so horrible it convinced him to get sober.
I didn't say they were good burgers. I'm just saying that was a model they were following with their cheap.
Oh, definitely. I'm just thinking, wow, Burger King. That's just not a good time.
I've heard that same analogy with Starbucks. So you
and Starbucks is the same thing. Yeah, Starbucks. Yeah,
like you want to buy a house, you go where there's a Starbucks at because that's where they put the money.
Or like Walmart does it. Walmart does the same thing too. If you want to open up an HEB or a grocery store, usually there's a Target within a mile of a Walmart.
Right.
I mean, it's just how it is.
Let's talk a little bit. Kev, you got something? Go ahead.
If you're comfortable with it, I actually have Mo's the infamous Instagram story that he posted with regards to you. And I was wondering, since you're here and you seem comfortable, would you want to go over it a little bit and kind of clue us into where he could be coming from?
Man, to be honest with you, I don't want to start any more stuff with that guy because there was a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes, and that we've kept it classy. I'm not gonna air our grievances publicly.
There's definitely sometimes a nefarious underlying tone with those guys. It just doesn't make the headlines as much.
Here's the deal, and you don't have to cut this out.
Yep.
My dealings with Mo was he was a fan. He came out to our Third Coast Grappling 3 show for Gordon. He loved it. Told me it was probably the one. I mean, I can't remember what he said, but probably one of the best grappling shows he's ever seen or been to or attended. Environment. He was a huge fan, and we were courting him as a possible investor for expansion opportunities, and stuff like that, as well as multiple other people. Because I am a fucking disabled veteran. I have, a side gig. I have another company I run, and my partner's a West Point grad. We come from humble beginnings. We're trying to raise capital to raise a substantial business. So we courted him to do that. He came out, enjoyed our event. Everything went well. And we were well into the booking for 3CG4 when he approached me and was like, hey, I got Ethan, I got Oliver, and I got, who's that other guy? Mike Perez. And he's like, I got these guys and I want to, is there any room on your card for them? And I'm like, nah, man, like, we're full, budget's full. And he's like, all right, I'll pay for them. And all of our conversations were on Instagram or Instagram voice, and it was all back and forth, and stuff just got confused. I'm dealing with at any point, if I have a qualifiers event I'm booking, if I have a numbered event I'm booking, and a kids event I was booking, which I was doing all 3, I have over 120 athletes and people plus their teams that I'm dealing with on any given basis. And to be doing business in Instagram and WhatsApp and all that stuff, it's very hard to keep track of, and things get crossed, I mean, he got upset about, he came on just solely as a sponsor. That was his involvement. And so we talked about those guys. I went out and found the matches. I kicked them to him. We kicked them back and forth. We confirmed them, and that was that. And then, we got down to closer to the event, and I was trying to clarify the terms of what the pay was, what this was, and just try and sort it out because I'd been dealing with some other stuff, outside of business. There was some personal stuff. And my focus wasn't as 100% as it should have been because day to day, I mean, it looks like a big deal, but I'm the one running things mostly day to day. I have people that come on closer to the events, and sometimes, things fall through the cracks. And I think that's what happened with Mo and with those fights and with the misunderstanding that came on with that. But I hold no ill will to those guys. They can say what they want. They can trash me. They can say whatever they want to do. I don't care. I mean,
I find it difficult to swallow that they would be that kind of animosity. Again, I don't know anything from anything. I honestly, this is the first I've heard that there was beef between you and Mo. I didn't know anything about that. Mm-hmm. I find it difficult to believe that people in the industry of jiu-jitsu would be that cutthroat against one another because, there are opportunities where you should be. We don't have to talk about. We have to get into it unless you don't want to. But we could talk about the Substars event that went down in Miami and the disaster that turned into.
That is what set the environment for what happened with us, and that's why I'm so I'm willing to just let a lot of the crazy shit that was said and done during that time period between coronavirus, Substars hysteria, the next event right after Substars, and all the different stuff that was going on. It was kind of like a perfect storm of, of stuff that could give the wrong impression if that was really the case. Right. And I think that's kind of why I'm whatever, it happened. It's a tough situation. Our company lost a lot of money, but we did pay back all travel expenses to all the athletes. And we even went above and beyond. And I paid Patrick Gaudio $1,000 cash out of my own pocket,
right,
as part of his camp expenses. It wasn't what his manager wanted it. He said, "Oh, I want 30%." I told him he's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was
sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Right.
So I was like, I gave him $1,000. It was what was agreed on, and that was that. But what was unfair to us, and Kevin, I'm just gonna let it rip on this. When we made the decision, we did. Right before that, we were being threatened to be exposed by people that we were frauds and that we were this, and it was all over the, like with Wagner Hocha, big fan of his, a lot of respect. There was a misunderstanding there because we had told him that he was booked. Like I wasn't even involved in this. My fighter relations gal was handling all this, and she was just going off of our policies that we have in place for all athletes. That we will try to room you together if you're on the same team, and if you're not, we'll give you $100 voucher so you can go book another room in the same hotel that we have a pre-negotiated rate at. You pay the other half so you can have your own room. I mean, we're not fucking rich. It was just our policy. Right. And Wagner hadn't fought for us since 3CG2. So when that was bounced around, he was like, "Hey, you're basically throwing me out. It's $100. It's this or that or the other. And how am I supposed to do that?" I'm like, "Well, we had you booked with somebody." He's like, "I got my wife with me." So eventually we're just like, fuck it. We paid for it. And then I even paid for his flight from Houston to Dallas so he could go compete again. So it's like I've been going out of my way to try to remediate these misunderstandings, but it's still it kept coming back to. And then that article came out. We announced, "Hey, we're gonna have to do it. We got to do it. Coronavirus. We're gonna have to move on. Texas only." And then people got pissed off, and then I got threatened by multiple people that are in this industry that they were going to expose us, that we're a fraud, that we're hiding behind coronavirus, and that we were doing all this just to save face because we couldn't afford our event. We couldn't pay our athletes. We couldn't do all this stuff. And I think I did my own podcast a couple of nights ago. And I'm like, you guys talk about not having events back and not having money and all this stuff and investors. I'm like, the guy in this chat on this podcast personally backed that event. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm right here. What do you want from us?" We're trying to do everything we can. Just because our business isn't ran like some other people might run their businesses, that's not really my thing. But when all that stuff came out, it was just a lot of heated stuff. People were like, "I'm going to expose you. You're trying to fuck the fighters over." And I think Mo being mixed up in it, with the Wagner Hotel stuff, him getting thrown in a group message like that, and then an attempt that his reputation might get marred or something, I think is what set him off. And then after me and Seth kind of made our piece, he reached out to me and apologized and was like, "Hey man, I'm sorry that stuff got out of hand. This coronavirus stuff's more serious, blase. Well, I make a post because on Reddit, people are tearing into us and all this stuff. It was just ridiculous off of a post that Mo had, or somebody had made, that person who wrote the article made on Reddit. So it was just all this crazy stuff back and forth. And I made a post on Instagram that basically said, I don't even remember what it said, to be honest with you, but it was something that was perceived as us taking a shot at Seth or somebody like that, when literally just 12 hours prior, me and him had made a beef. It had nothing to do with him. And it was just people sticking their nose in business that they shouldn't be sticking their nose in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the grand scheme of what you're talking about is that, the circumstances surrounding the cancelization, because during that period of time, as a community, as a country, we really didn't know what the hell was going on. We had, it goes back to the just like you said, you went from literally day to day, hour to hour changes in what you could have done to put on the promotion. So every time you would try to put something together to salvage it, the state would come back and say, "Hey, no, sorry, we can't do that because X, Y, Z." So, I mean, I think that I personally hope that, since that time, as we've watched how things have continued to unfold, and again, in the beginning stages, nobody knew what the hell was going on. All of a sudden, I can't go to work. I'm locked out of my house. All these things started to happen in real time. I hope that people can go back and realize that, hey, there was no nefarious scheme here. The world came to an end. We all had.
Real quick, it's not just individuals making choices. We the media coverage from all sides of the political spectrum was telling us that this is a bad flu. It's not going to mean anything. And they were even saying, you really need to worry about the flu. And cut to now, it is the greatest pandemic, hopefully, that any of us will ever live through.
No, and it went from 200 and something deaths. Now it's down to projected 60 in less than the seasonal flu. What got me the most upset now is that we made our jump on it. And now it looks like possibly it's going to be exponentially less worse. And thank God for that.
Right.
But it's looking like the government may have knee-jerked a little bit on the whole response.
Yeah. I'm just glad. And again, I'm so over trying to die. Just like Kevin said, I'm so over trying to dissect what happened because I'm kind of in that court myself too. I believe in the beginning stages, it's pretty clear that everyone was concerned mildly, but not really to the point of like, oh my God, the world's going to end. And then all of a sudden we realized, oh shit, the world might end. We better get this shit under control. And then it just happened. So like, I'm just over trying to figure out what happened, trying to figure out where things are going. And I'm glad to see that it seems like we are progressing in a positive manner to continue to eventually get back to our ordinary lives, and hopefully life continues to go.
I have a sort of I have a sort of loose idea or sort of theory or hypothesis on how, like, why emotions could have run so high so quickly with regards to 3CG had like all the stuff happening right after Substars famously shit the bed even bigger than Metamoris did. And Kevin Ryan, if you want to hear this and tell me if you think there's anything to what I'm saying,
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I feel like everybody that loves this sport feels like they need to take it upon themselves to make a mission out of it, to make a crusade out of it. So whenever they see something like Substars, like Metamoris, when they see things like abuses of power, just because this is a very niche market. If we don't fervently care about it a lot all the time, no one else is going to. The guys that do it, something like the stat that gets thrown around is like 90% of people that watch jiu-jitsu or grappling events also practice it. It's not like MMA where it's like that got that wide appeal. And you have like the people like the guys at Substars tried to throw in like a lot of gimmicks. Like they had the whole sumo wrestler fight. They had the kabuki dancers and the samurai warriors.
Anthony Johnson in a damn diaper. Like
he just kept messing with it.
Crazier and crazier as the night went on. It was insane. It was
I watched it. I was like, holy shit!
I was there. Yeah, it was insane.
I'm a casual sumo fan, like to the point where I kind of understand the rules, but that announcer needs to never announce another thing for the rest of his life. It went on and on. The more he talked, the more I wanted to tear all the skin off of my body.
There were points where I had to mute it. It was pretty bad, but I don't want to kick those guys in the nuts. But Kevin, like with the Substars, the post Substar stuff, coupled with me trying to raise funds for my business, and I've got messages dating 6 months back, so we're trying to raise funds for this expansion because we were getting ready to go on the road. We were going to go to the East Coast and do a show in your town in Jersey. We were going to go to California. We were going to go to Florida. We were going to go to Dallas. We were going to take our show on the road and our brand of jiu-jitsu, and to do that you need money, and I'm not fucking rich, and neither is my partner, and people were needling us like, oh, Third Coast Grappling's poor. Like, okay. Like, thanks. I appreciate it. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, of course we're poor. Like we're in a very poor sport trying to, give athletes an opportunity usually at our own financial detriment, give you guys opportunities to showcase your skills and then do really cool stuff on our side to try and grow the sport past just a practitioner and to people that can actually enjoy watching competitive grappling. And to be honest, I'm really jaded by it now. I mean, I just over the past month or two, it's like I've questioned if I even wanted to do this anymore, if I even wanted to even waste my time with it, because with some of the people it doesn't matter anymore. Like you can do all these great things, and then next thing you know, Gordon Ryan's gonna write a shitty Instagram post about you, and then it's all, or the leader of the ADCC is gonna come and write something that wasn't even like rooted really and real reality. I mean, the stuff that he said about Wagner, I could have explained every point, and like I told you, Kevin, I didn't want to do it. And then the other stuff he wrote about saying that I was on a Reddit account at 3 a.m. or something, posting something negative, and he posted it on his Instagram story, and we talked it out, and it came down to I have a social media guy in California. We literally have a tab on our spreadsheet for our business, one of our spreadsheets that says social media logins. And there's about 20 people that have access to that. And so I guess somebody was on there. Look, people got pissed off over that article that came out about us on my team because it wasn't true. So the Grappling Insider article that came out pissed people off on my team. And then the anonymous sources started to not be so anonymous anymore. And, we started finding out who was behind it and who did this and who did that. And people, I can't control what my people do. But apparently somebody was supposed to be on a burner account of their own, got on there and said a bunch of shit. And the guy wasn't even with us for 2 or 3 weeks. He was just somebody that was coming on to help me with Reddit, get me involved with that, how to do AMAs and how to get more engagement on our posts and how to do more stuff for that. So he was caught, I guess, making a post from his burner account on the Third Coast Grappling account. And then, so of course, Ryan, why are you on Reddit fucking talking shit about me and saying all this terrible stuff and blah, 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 blah. And so basically, I mean, I get what it looks like, but it's not the truth. I don't even hardly get on Reddit. I mean, I get on there and I'll skim stuff sometimes about us, but for the most part, I'm not even a Redditor per se.
I just think it's funny that the world that we live in, it almost seems like we've been reduced, even at the highest levels of business and the highest levels of government anymore. We've been reduced down to 15-year-old girls that are tagging and posting each other in Instagram posts and sending hate mail and I've
told them all. I said, post what you want about me, say what you want about me, kick me in the nuts, but you don't pay my fucking bills. You don't pay anything to do on my show. You have no effect on my day-to-day life. Yeah, you can go out there, slander me, run me through the mud, say about all this slanderous shit, but you know what? I've got a team of attorneys. I went to war with Flow Grappling. Like, I don't give a fuck who you are. Like, if you're going to come at me and you're going to make libelous statements and you're going to come and you're going to try and hurt my business, I'm just going to call my attorney. Like, why am I going to get on the internet and get on air and go back and forth with you and tear each other down and say a bunch of ridiculous shit to each other that doesn't even matter? Like, people read that stuff. Like, our least engaged post on social media is BJJ promoter drama. Like, if you go and look at the analytics on, like, I'm a big analytics guy. I look at our posts, anything that's ever had to do with anything other than like our events or like memes or this or that are like super low engagement.
Do you work with any marketing firms, or do you hire individual marketing people?
This guy was recommended to us by a guy out on the West Coast. I'm not going to say his name because there's people out there asking for this guy's identity. I want to talk to him. I want to shake him down. And I'm like, you know what? Look, I'm the president of the company. It's mine. I'll take it on the chest. You want to blame somebody? Blame me for, I guess, I don't know what to blame me for. I didn't do anything. It was somebody that worked for me. I fired him. He's gone. And that's the end of that. That's all I can say. I mean, I even apologized. I said, I don't know what else we can really do. I'm sorry those horrible things were said, but people were pissed off. You were named as a source in an article that hurt our business. So there were people on my team that retaliated. And
now, like, since that event and since that that login was, exploited by someone that, you hired but turns out wasn't on the up and up, has that changed anything that you do regarding how you go about hiring people or who has access to the login? Did this spark any change?
Yeah, it's a big change. Like, I'm the only, like, on Reddit now, it's me 100%. I'm not letting anybody else on any sort of Reddit platform. If it's a Third Coast Grappling post, it came from me, because the issue that I get is that I have a hard time trusting people like that haven't came up with this. And when I'm delegating to people, or I'm trying to outsource things or do this and that, I lose control over it. And eventually shit like what happens. And I'm stuck here having to, I just got over all this bullshit over the coronavirus thing and these guys accusing us, unfairly. And the next thing you know, somebody's on there, going at his throat at 2 something in the morning when I'm asleep with my wife next to me. Like, I'm not, like, I get woken up by a WhatsApp at like 2 a.m. Some people freaking out on me. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I don't know, man. The jiu-jitsu, I think people just need to get back to training. This thing needs to move on. People need a stress reliever. They need a distraction, because I'm not into it anymore. Like, from now on, if people come at us, we're just going to call our attorneys. We're going to, like I said, we'll let them handle it. And I'm not getting involved in it. It's trashy. And I think, honestly, as adults, people that are supposed to be setting examples for kids out there, I run a kids event. I'm not supposed to be out there on Instagram going back and forth with some random guy that nobody knows who they are outside of
slinging shit just in the name of marketing.
And no, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, no benefit for us. I'm not trying to stroke my ego. I have no ego in this. We just want to throw great shows. My only ego I have in our show is that I think our show's the greatest, just like anybody else should think their
that's your job as the promoter
so
to feel that way. If you're not feeling that way, then you're not doing your job.
Yeah. But
one thing I want to say, just in regards to comparisons to you to Substars, and we won't get into the whole Substars fiasco because we had a whole show on that, and like everybody knows what a disaster that.
Although
was.
I do think Third Coast Sumo would absolutely blow the doors
another
off.
fat joke about me. I see what's going on. Kevin started.
Oh,
no.
You won't need
it's too fit, bud.
Ryan, I probably weigh 20 times more than you do right now. I'm not gonna lie. The camera's very flattering to me.
What I wanted to say is this: is like, you know, I was pretty intimately involved in that Substars event. I had one of my fellow competitors, my fellow teammates on that event. I was down there at the event, and I know the guy that ran the event pretty well. I competed on a couple of their smaller shows that they had before. They did a pretty good job on the smaller shows.
I followed them, like the smaller shows at the Tank and all that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was awesome, cool, man.
Yeah, I had a great match on one of the shows. It was awesome. I was there coaching Nick Rodriguez in the tag team event, which wasn't as good. It was kind of slowed down. Their venue was smaller and it wasn't that great. The point of the matter is when I found out that they were putting on the scope of the show that they were putting on, I immediately went to the place of saying, okay, well, they must have found someone else to help them put this together. And when I found out, no, it was still the same kid that was putting it down, I was very, very immediately concerned because I had been involved in a couple other shows and I know this kid pretty well. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way like he has the wherewithal to be able to figure this out.
I'm going to tell you something. Basically, what we plan to do with our platform with Sub TV, basically what we got sued for by Flow Grappling is what Substars put on.
Right.
You know
they were trying to run the
so we were like
pay-per-view model.
Bullet there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny you say that because we had Josh LeDuc on. He's one of my dogs. We had him on talking about the same exact thing, and he used your name as a reference. He said, this guy, because Josh LeDuc did the pay-per-view for them because they called him in at the last second because they had nobody. He's like, hey, Josh, how do you want to come run our cameras and stuff for him? Josh's like, sure. Their whole platform was to sell. I think they wanted to sell like fucking
30,000
or 20,000 pay-per-views, and like all he had to do was pick up the phone and call yourself or call some other people in the jiu-jitsu world and say, "Hey, let's talk about
Call Seth Daniels. Seth Daniels will tell you how fucking dead pay-per-view is in jiu-jitsu." And I wanted to be like, fuck you, Seth. I'm going to show you that it can be done when we were in that process to, do that because spite motivation is big. So like when we were in that period where we were going, I'm be like, I'm going to show I can make it work, but I'm going to make a statement. If it was us instead of Substars, our model instead of theirs, I think we could have got the big buys. I think we could have marketed it correctly, and I think we could have done it right. But I do think pay-per-view is dead as far as a standalone deal. I think
jiu-jitsu peeps are cheap, man. We're not going to spend $20.
I was fucking furious. I spent $9.99 to watch that, and I'm in the industry. I was so fucking mad.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. Like there's something about the dynamic of financials that $10 for a pay-per-view that's 4 hours. It seems ridiculous. But like I'll spend $50 at the bar to buy 4 drinks and a couple shots. It just doesn't make sense. But
only because we're on the topic, I feel like right now would be an appropriate place to further plug our buddy Josh Starlord LeDuc's special coffee blend. I think it's Pay Up Bitches. It is designed. It is all the proceeds. It's really great espresso blend. All proceeds go to trying to pay the athletes. So it's a good cause. I don't think
in my life I've ever met a bigger hustler than Josh LeDuc, and I mean that in a positive note. I don't mean that he's young too.
I'm like, dude, why do you look 45? Maybe he told me
I was always, because I always say this about Josh, and I love him to death. We have our things sometimes, but like I love him to death because I was there in the beginning from him. I can remember him as a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid at the beginning stages before anyone had any clue what submission-only grappling events were that were to be marketed to the mass public when it was in its absolute infant stages. I truly believe that Josh LeDuc was at the forefront of that. And I was always impressed at his ability to be able to put these things together at such a young age, and he's continuing through and hustle.
I see a lot of me and him get along alike because we have a lot of the same thinkings and the way we approach things. And we're both kind of boisterous. We're out there. We're loud. So me and him have, we butted heads a little bit, but then it became a good friendship. And he's somebody that, I usually talk to at least daily. Like we'll bounce ideas off of each other, or, we'll talk shit with each other about whatever's going on. But, to get back to the Mo thing that we were talking about with, as far as like the messages and the Reddit stuff and all that stuff, man, look, that's not my style. That's not my team style. And the core of our group, me, Lisa, Zach, Oliver, like, man, that's not us. Like there's people in the jiu-jitsu community that you guys all know that live for this shit, that live to stir shit up, that live to do this. And whatever the fuck he was doing, apparently he was drunk and high and he wanted to talk some shit. And so he got involved. And the guy's been in the industry a little bit. Like he had given me some advice on certain things, and, he's designed and done a few things for other people, but those weren't a reflection of what we feel. I have nothing but respect for Mo. He brought us out to ADCC VIP right in the middle of all that shit with Flow Grappling. Like, and Flow Grappling was putting ADCC on. He had the nuts to say, you know what? I'm not going to keep them out of there. These guys are still going to come out. He gave us passes. We got to come and enjoy ADCC, and it was a blast. So
probably because Mo could buy Flow Grappling if he really wanted to. But
I'm surprised he doesn't. Now that I think about it,
who knows? He may have a stake in it. Who knows? But he was always a nice guy with us, and he was somebody that he rolled the red carpet out for us, and it was really nice and really knowledgeable guy on the sport. So when we were like, hey, come out to ours, and a lot of his guys, he was friends with Wagner and Ethan and all those guys or whatever. Gordon were all on our card, and the Bo Nickel thing was huge. So we came out, we got him a
free, you did put on that show. That was a good show.
Yeah, we gave him a free table. We get, Nicky Rod was there, table side, Michael Zinga. They were all sitting there at the table, Matt's side, loving it, telling us it's the best thing ever. And we had a great time. It was a great relationship, and then they moved on, and then we get down the road, and then, we have a qualifiers event, we have our kids event, and then we're building up to this event, and we're doing well, we're winning. And then the coronavirus hits, and then it's like, broken relationship left and right, because people are so like paranoid from the Substar stuff and from, from just past things that have gone on in the jiu-jitsu community. But I'm never going to come out and fight back against Mo. He can say whatever he wants about me. I know the truth. I've put the truth out on Reddit. I've put the truth out on our AMA on Reddit. I've put it out on multiple podcasts. I put it out on this podcast. Our intentions never were to fuck anybody over. We have nothing but respect for Mo. Seth, I have nothing but respect for that guy, and we just want to move past it and move on and get back to throwing shows whenever we can. All this other drama and bullshit between people and flexing, I mean, if that makes you feel good about yourself, go for it, but it's not really my game. I don't got to flex.
I mean, I'll go on record right now, and I'll just say this, just to say it, because I don't know all the dynamics of what happened. I don't know what their beef is. I don't know what their gripes is, but like yourself and your promotion being compared in any way, shape, or form to Substars is just completely wrong. And I feel that you're the victim of the circumstances of the hoopla that was following around the Substars event, and then the unfortunate circumstances of the coronavirus that immediately tried to put you in that same discussion. And it's just, believe me, I was very, very firsthand involved in the calamity that was the Substars, and I know the business model that you have, and it's damn sure nothing.
And like even our business model, like it was very heavily reliant on investors and sponsors and stuff like that, because to get these big guys, some of these big guys are wanting 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand to compete. And to the most that I can generate, say at my music venue ballpark for tickets is like 40 to 50K I'll get for a sellout. And then on top of that, my licensing fee from Flow, which is very generous, I add that on top. And then I add in sponsors here and there, and we make an event work. But that is not a sustainable model. We weren't going after it to try and like make an event that's going to make me a bunch of money. We all have other means to make our money. Ours was to do something cool for jiu-jitsu, try our model out. Our rule set was different. The way we approached the sport was different. We made matches we thought fans wanted to see, and we tried to just do something different. And if it caught fire and it started making a bunch of money, then we can make some money, and we keep throwing big events and we keep moving on. But none of us have taken a fucking cent from Third Coast Grappling. That's what I'm getting at. Like, it's a
labor of love.
Let me ask.
That's what it is.
Go ahead, Kev. Go ahead.
No, that was. I just wanted to say that.
Let me ask one more question, and maybe we can get running, because I know we've been going for an hour now. It's
you're good, man. I've got time.
Let me ask you one question real quick, and this might be my final question. Maybe we can keep going if you want to talk, but this is something I want to get to before I forget about it. Mm-hmm. So I'm big on, just like you said, I love jiu-jitsu, and I love the sport of jiu-jitsu, and I really, truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that jiu-jitsu in and of itself is sustainable enough to entertain other than the jiu-jitsu market. I'm talking about mom and pops and layman's that want to come watch it, because, you know, you watch some high-level jiu-jitsu and it's exciting. And as much as people want to say it is, yeah, they don't know the rules, but like people don't know the damn rules in an MMA fight either. And the only difference is you're punching people in the face. You know, the combat jiu-jitsu tried to make a run at that, and I just don't think it ever worked out because the quality of jiu-jitsu suffered. I believe that the quality of true world-class jiu-jitsu, as long as you have a decent enough rule set to provoke action, is exciting enough to follow. And I want to see promotions like yourself succeed because I want to see that eventuality come to terms. My question to you is this. At what point do people like yourself, out of the kindness of your own heart, that want to continue keeping the sport going, have to sit back and have a real rational conversations with themselves and others involved and say, hey, man, like, this is awesome and I love jiu-jitsu, but at the end of the day, I'm not Mo Jessup and I'm not, you know, some rich billionaire that can continue to dump money into this without having to worry about losing it. What point do you have to say, hey, look, if this isn't profitable anymore, we just can't do it? Is just what my concern is. And what are some of the ways you feel like we can continue to try to make it more profitable?
To be honest with you, we've had that conversation multiple times, you know, like, we're like, man, how the fuck do you make money in this thing? Cause what I didn't want to do is go out there and rip Seth off and just, you know, steal his model and, you know, load my card up with 30 or 40 local fights, have them sell it out and then put the couple, you know, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to find another way.
I don't want to interrupt you, but that's an important distinction that the business model of Steph Daniels, what makes him successful.
Well, he's able to do
he's
that.
Not making any money off of fucking Wagner Rocha and the big, he does that because he loves jiu-jitsu. He makes money off of
he's doing it for flow. Like he makes his money off the city, the jiu-jitsu communities. He's not making the money off flow grappling for having Wagner Rocha and this and that. That's for those guys, for the jiu-jitsu nerds that subscribe to flow, that want to watch that keep people tuning in. But his model is sustainable. He does such a big volume that he can earn a little or he can lose maybe at one show, but then make it up and kill it the next show. He has that ability. And what we were trying to develop, and we're still trying to develop, is our ability to fly in or take a trailer into a city, into a music venue, throw our mats on the floor, get our production set up, and then replicate our shows in and around the country or in and around the world like we were going to do with Grapple Fest. But I think to get down to sustainability, it's going to take, you know, that's something that we struggled with from day one, overpaying fighters, you know, just not know. It's just going to take now negotiations, and it's going to take looking at fighters' values at an overall picture. And I think what we're going to go to is probably a flat based payment structure for colored belts. So brown and below, this is what you're going to get. If you get your submission and regulation, you'll get this. And I don't care if you're the best brown belt in the world, that's what you're going to get. Right. And then our black belts and some of our bigger names and stuff will negotiate around that. But I think to get there, that you have to basically be able to generate enough revenue from your licensing fees and your live gate in order to, you know, make some money for the business, pay the athletes, and go on down the road. That's basically the basic math equation you got to make right there. I mean, is make more than you're losing.
It's funny you brought that up about athletes, because this is something that myself in general, as you know, a professional jiu-jitsu athlete, whatever, you know, that's what I tell girls at the bar. But you know, the idea of being able to make a living doing jiu-jitsu as an athlete is something that these athletes just need to get out of their head. You know what I mean? Unless you're at the absolute, I mean, because even as a professional fighter, unless you are at the absolute pinnacle of the pyramid, like I'm talking even guys that fight in the UFC, they got side gigs. Man.
Ally Kenta, best real estate agent in Long Island.
Exactly. And people think that Gordon Ryan is making all this money off these super fights. And no, it's just fucking instructionals.
Right, exactly.
That's where he's making his money.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is that as a jiu-jitsu community, the arrogance, because like there was a bit of a time when I was like, well, what are you going to pay me? What's going on? I've gotten to the point of saying, you know what, man, like I enjoy to compete. I love this shit. And I enjoy the fact that there are guys like yourself that give me a platform to be able to do that. So I can say, hey, look, man, I've done some pretty cool shit, man. I got to be on Flow Grappling. I got to be on, you know, on Fight Pass. I got to do some things like that. And until the jiu-jitsu community and the jiu-jitsu fucking competitors get off their own asses and get out of their own fucking heads and start to quit demanding these ridiculous fucking prices, it's going to be a detriment to jiu-jitsu as a whole. You know, because putting yourself out there in a big show like that makes you marketable. Now, if you got a little hustle, you can make money doing other shit.
What we're just gonna start doing, man, is just saying no more. Like I said, I had to say yes a lot in the beginning because we were trying to get our foot in the door. Nobody knew who we were. We were gonna have to overpay a little bit to get these guys to trust us. We're gonna have to do certain things in order just to be able to get into a market that is kind of like insulated by 3 or 4 people that have been doing it for 10 or 20 years. So trying to break into this market is very hard, and you catch a lot of resistance from a lot of different angles. Like there's people. I've never have experienced anything like this in my life, and I've been to combat. I've fought overseas in a war, and I've never seen anything as crazy. And just from like my degrees in social work, I did a lot of psychology classes. I've never seen anything like just more of like just like the biggest like sociology experience than jiu-jitsu super fight events or trying to organize them. It's unreal, just the stuff that you observe. But we've made our mistakes. We're not perfect. We fucked up. We're new. It's like our white belt year as a promoter, but we had a big surge because basically that's what we wanted. We wanted to hack the market. And so we had a lot of big growth, and now we have some catching up to do to that growth and to formalize it. And that's what we're doing during all this downtime.
Do I have your permission to just name this episode "Don't Mess with Texas"? I'm really tempted to do that.
Go for it, baby. Let's go.
Well, okay. Just my final to sort of bookend my questions. You know, we've talked a lot about what like the beginnings were like, current events, and now there's a very unknown future. But you're a very forward-thinking guy. You've definitely put a lot of at least some amount of thought into what's next. Tell us what the next 7 to 8 months look like for Third Coast as far as you know right now.
Well, right now we're looking at June 13th. I mean, that's 2 months away. Probably not going to happen, but our governor is supposed to be easing restrictions on a few things so where we can start having people get back together again a little bit. And if that's the case, we're going to make a run at the streaming thing, the spectators thing, or, you know, small size grappling events to get these guys, you know, some money. I had some ideas. I did this with some of my musicians friends. Like I don't do campsites or anything. I think, you know, but I'm not a campsite guy. But this is where I got.
Thank God.
You could do a sumo campsite thing just to bring that back in again, right?
This is where I got the idea from. So look. And this is probably going to get stolen like some of these other unoriginal motherfuckers are going to do, but you can edit that out if you need to. But what we're going to do is we were going to take 3 or 4 super fights. We were going to get their Venmo, their PayPal, their Cash Apps, put them on each side under their name, and we're going to have the athletes compete. And then we're going to have it streamed out, have the whole community involved, you guys, everybody, get it streamed out everywhere and allow people to tip or pay for the match, depending on if they were entertained or maybe their friends competing or whatever, and give the athletes a chance to make some money. That's something that we're looking at doing. That's one way to look at it. But I mean, right now, man, I'm just trying to navigate the landmines, the political landmines, keep my foot out of my mouth, and just try and find a way to get back to throwing good shows. But right now, it's day to day. There's a lot of uncertainty, and you know, the minute that we're able to throw shows again, I'm telling you right now, I've got so many ideas ready to go that you know, we're not slowing down. Whenever it's time to go back to get back to business, we're going to be throwing the same great shows we always have been. And then, you know, people can either dig it or they can not tune in. I mean,
I personally appreciate what you do for the sport, Ryan. I want to, as someone that's been around this shit for a long time, you do a pretty good job of it, man. I'm glad that there's people like you out there doing this.
Man, I try.
And also, you know, I know you hear this all the time. I just want to make it a point to say thank you for your service because I know that's a big deal. I know you might not want to hear that because I know soldiers don't dig it, but I want to tell you anyway because I feel like you deserve to hear it.
No,
and I believe that jiu-jitsu's healing power is a good thing for that. I've done a lot of writing for that. I've been involved with it.
No, and that's a whole nother podcast. I mean,
yeah, 100%. 100%.
Jiu-jitsu for me, I'm telling you right now, I was 320 pounds and less than 2 years later, I'm married. I have a kid. I'm 210 pounds. I mean, I have a great story as well. And that's why I was like, I want to start something that can spread jiu-jitsu out to the masses, get more people involved, get more people training, maybe more soldiers with PTSD, maybe more drug addicts, maybe people that can come in and pour that level of focus they had into being a fuck up into being jiu-jitsu athletes or to change their lives the way I was able to. But
when I
like
interviewed you the first time, I remembered about that, and that was one of the things when I wrote my article that I was very appreciative of, to see someone that really, that is coming from this. Yeah, obviously you're an entrepreneur, you want to make some money out of it, but there's also a part of you that really has a passion for what the true powers of jiu-jitsu have to offer. And your story was a great story, and I'm glad there's guys like you involved in this sport.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I know we've gone on a little bit longer than you guys normally want, but for people that have been down to the fucking bottom, the ones that have fucking lost everything multiple times, the ones that have watched friends die, the ones that have watched their mother OD on drugs, the ones that have had to put friends in and out of rehab, the one that's been in and out of rehabs themselves, people that have been to the fucking bottom. You can't hurt them anymore. You can't kick them in the nuts anymore. Nothing you can say or do is going to be any worse than the shit somebody that has gone through something like that, pulled themselves up, and is in my shoes or better. You know what I'm saying? So when I approach the jiu-jitsu game and all the bullying and all the bullshit that goes on, you can't say or do anything to me that's going to hurt me any worse than anything I've already been through. I'm going to throw my shows. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm going to stay true to myself and my people, and that's all that fucking matters.
I like that, man. Great fucking interview, man. You're
make sure you get like everyone's getting paid. That's the bottom line, really.
$300,000 our first year, 100% payment rate. Drops the mic. You can end it on that if you want.
Ryan, I would join Kevin G in thanking you for your service, but I have a little brother in the Marine Corps, and he would probably make fun of me a lot if I did. I know you guys are very territorial. I don't fully understand it, but
they're just fucking jarheads. They don't know any better.
Oh, Sean, calling you out. If there's an osprey hovering above your house later, just ignore it.
My brother-in-law is actually an Apache pilot, so that maybe they can go at it. Osprey versus Apache.
I mean, Sean, you might have to strap in, bud. I don't know. You might be getting a call. All right. Well, that was a really a very surprisingly uplifting, positive episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. We're still coming at you from quarantine, still giving you all the jiu-jitsu that you need to survive. I have been your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Kevin Gallagher, and our special guest, Ryan McGuire. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. We hope to have you back, man.
Awesome, man. Thanks, guys.
All right. Peace out.